I'm Morgan Adams, 32 years old, the overlooked middle offspring in the Adams software empire. When I arrived at our Boston estate that Thanksgiving, I observed Father constantly glancing at his mobile device, murmuring to Mother with unusual animation. They remained oblivious that beneath my understated black garment resided someone they had severely miscalculated. The revelation Father intended to deliver during dinner would transform our household permanently, though not as he anticipated. If this family enterprise scenario resonates with you, leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to witness how I converted my father's disloyalty into the most satisfying retribution that altered our household permanently. My upbringing occurred in Brookline, among Boston's most affluent neighborhoods, within an expansive colonial residence featuring 6 sleeping quarters, a temperature-controlled interior swimming facility, and grounds requiring 3 landscapers for upkeep. Externally, we represented the quintessential American achievement narrative. My grandfather Robert Adams established Adams Software Solutions in his residential garage during 1978, possessing merely a used computing machine and an innovative concept for inventory control programming. He constructed it from zero into a territorial powerhouse before my father Harold Adams assumed control in 1995. Father expanded operations vigorously. Through his guidance, Adams Software evolved from a $10 million household enterprise to a $50 million corporation employing over 200 individuals and servicing customers nationwide. Every festive meal, every household excursion, every weekend gathering inevitably transformed into a commemoration of his commercial brilliance. The Adams designation became interchangeable with achievement throughout Boston commercial networks, and Father never permitted anyone to disregard it, particularly his offspring. 3 Adams children existed. My elder brother Garrett, 38, was the favored offspring, despite never demonstrating genuine capability for commercial operations. He pursued communications, celebrated throughout university, yet Father still granted him a vice presidential role immediately following graduation. Garrett dedicated more hours to his watercraft or his rotating selection of romantic partners than to the workplace, yet somehow Father remained persuaded he represented the inherent successor to the Adams position. Then myself, Morgan, consistently trapped centrally at 32. Unlike my siblings, I inherited my grandfather's enthusiasm for computing technology. I acquired coding skills independently at 12 and constructed my initial application at 15. I pursued computer technology and commerce at MIT, graduated with highest distinction, and possessed genuinely innovative concepts for modernizing operations. Yet somehow Father always gazed directly past me throughout commercial conversations as though I were transparent. My younger sibling Megan, 29, completed our group. She utilized our household designation to establish herself as a lifestyle content creator, with hundreds of thousands of admirers who appreciated her meticulously arranged perspectives into established wealth New England existence. She possessed zero curiosity regarding programming or commercial operations, yet never overlooked an occasion to publish content about representing an Adams software successor while contributing nothing toward the corporation's achievements. Mother Diane originated from established Boston wealth, approaching household discord the manner all respectable Beacon Hill spouses did, by disregarding it entirely and serving another glass of Chardonnay. She performed as mediator yet ultimately enabled Father's most problematic behaviors, especially his rejection of my commercial expertise. Harold, perhaps you should consider Morgan's proposal, she would occasionally recommend during meals, only to instantly withdraw when Father delivered that expression. Diane, kindly, this represents genuine commerce we're examining, he would state, before returning toward Garrett to resume their discussion about recreation or yacht establishments or whatever non-commercial subject they were genuinely examining. Household assemblies consistently revolved around commercial discussion that somehow eliminated me. Typically Garrett would control conversations with sector terminology and internal references, while I remained voiceless despite comprehending the technology and marketplace superior to either of them. If I attempted contributing, father would respond condescendingly and express something like, "That's pleasant, Morgan," though permit the commercial discussions to individuals who comprehend the genuine environment. The critical moment arrived when I reached 22. Recently from MIT with distinctions, I had created a cloud-integrated solution that could have transformed our product offerings years before competitors accessed that domain. I dedicated months constructing a thorough commercial strategy, marketplace examination, and technical details. Father ultimately consented to permit me presenting during a board assembly, supposedly as professional consideration. I continue remembering entering that mahogany-furnished boardroom, portable computer and presentation documents in possession, pulse accelerating with a combination of anxiety and anticipation. The board participants, entirely males in their 50s and 60s who had been father's associates for generations, observed with courteous yet detached expressions as I connected my portable computer to the display equipment. 10 minutes into my demonstration, father examined his timepiece, exhaled audibly, and elevated his palm to halt me during speech. "I believe we've witnessed sufficient," he stated, with a constrained expression that failed to extend to his vision. "Morgan, sweetheart. This represents all very imaginative though entirely unrealistic for a legitimate enterprise like ours. Our customers desire consistency, not experimental technologies." He directed himself toward the board participants with an apologetic gesture. "My daughter recently completed university and possesses these scholarly concepts. Now shall we advance to genuine commercial subjects?" The embarrassment consumed me as I gathered my documents while they expressed amusement and proceeded as though I had never existed. That evening I determined a resolution that would alter everything. I would depart Boston and the household enterprise behind. I would construct something personally, something sufficiently successful that even my father couldn't reject it. I relocated to San Francisco possessing $5,000 in reserves and nothing additional. My parents presumed it represented merely a temporary tantrum they accommodated with patronizing tolerance. "She'll return when her finances deplete," I heard father informing mother on the telephone during one of our progressively infrequent communications. Those initial years proved severe. My compact studio residence in a questionable district consumed nearly my complete monthly allocation. I subsisted on inexpensive noodles and coffee, laboring 80-hour weeks initially at introductory coding positions, subsequently as an independent developer. Every dollar I could preserve directed toward constructing my personal corporation. I established Everest Holdings under the pseudonym M.E. Stone. The initials represented Morgan Elizabeth, though nobody recognized that. I desired my achievement or disappointment to be entirely separated from the Adams designation. I commenced modestly, creating customized enterprise solutions for emerging businesses, reinvesting every gain. By year 3 I employed 10 individuals and possessed a legitimate workplace in Soma. The advancement occurred when I created a proprietary integration system that permitted legacy frameworks to communicate effortlessly with contemporary cloud services, ironically comparable to what I had proposed to my father years previously. Venture funding approached, though I preserved majority possession, determined to command my trajectory. Throughout the subsequent 7 years I strategically obtained smaller technology corporations that supplemented our offerings. Everest Holdings expanded to a $200 million assessment with workplaces in 3 municipalities. Throughout everything I preserved my pseudonym in all commercial transactions. In the technology sector, M.E. Stone was recognized as a brilliant, private founder who infrequently granted discussions or attended sector occasions. When I absolutely required making public presentations, I utilized subtle alterations to my presentation and permitted my COO to conduct most communication. My household remained entirely unaware of my achievements. During festive communications and occasional visits, I maintained discussions vague, characterizing my occupation as performing adequately or continuing to determine things. Father never insisted on specifics, as he had already dismissed my profession as insignificant. This accommodated me perfectly, as I constructed Everest into something that would eventually astonish them entirely. What they remained oblivious to was that for the previous year I had been strategically obtaining portions in corporations that were essential suppliers and customers of Atom's software. I examined their quarterly documents, recognized their vulnerabilities, and positioned Everest as the perfect purchaser to elevate Atom's software to the subsequent tier. 6 months previously I had my CFO transmit an anonymous acquisition proposal through a third entity, which my father predictably rejected without appropriate consideration. Now 10 years after being embarrassed in that boardroom, I was returning home for Thanksgiving with a strategy that would alter everything. Atom's software was experiencing difficulty with antiquated technology and diminishing marketplace portion. My father remained unaware yet, though I was about to become his most severe challenge and his exclusive salvation. The week preceding Thanksgiving I was in my corner workplace overlooking San Francisco Bay, completing the documentation for what would be the most significant transaction of my existence. My assistant knocked and entered with my travel schedule. "Your private aircraft is verified for Tuesday at 11 in the morning," she stated, positioning the folder on my workspace. "Are you certain you prefer not bringing your executive group to Boston for the authorization?" I declined with a head gesture. "This is personal. I require handling it independently." After she departed, my telephone rang. It was Isabella, my closest companion since those early struggling days when we occupied a partition in neighboring studio residences. "Are you genuinely proceeding with this household Thanksgiving performance?" she inquired without introduction. After everything they executed, after 2 years of barely communicating with them. I exhaled, rotating in my chair to confront the window. "I must be present personally when it occurs, Izzy. I require witnessing his expression." "I recall the previous Christmas catastrophe," she stated cautiously. "Your father announced Garrett's advancement to executive vice presidential role while you remained there with your unrecognized Series B financing round. You returned to California and didn't communicate with them for months." The recollection stung. Father had elevated a toast to the future of Atom's software while gazing directly at my brother, who had been excessively intoxicated to contribute anything meaningful to the strategy assembly earlier that day. "This occasion will be different," I assured. "Everything transforms this Thanksgiving." I dedicated the evening organizing, deliberately selecting my wardrobe to deliver a statement. Gone were the informal garments my household associated with me. Instead, I organized our wealth suits, a Chanel garment for Thanksgiving dinner, Louboutin footwear, and the subtle indicators of achievement that exclusively the wealthy recognize, a Patek Philippe timepiece, a Bottega Veneta handbag, modest diamond accessories from Tiffany. None of it ostentatious, all of it unmistakably expensive. After years of deliberately minimizing my achievement around my household, I desired them witnessing glimpses of it before the final disclosure. Tuesday morning I entered the private aircraft I infrequently utilized, preferring commercial transportation despite my wealth. This journey warranted the exception. During the 5-hour transportation I reviewed the agreement once more, ensuring every specification was perfect. The irony wasn't lost on me that for years I had traveled economy to Boston, consuming airplane snacks and compressing into center positions while constructing the empire that would now permit me to arrive in elegance. The aircraft landed at a private airfield outside Boston. A black Bentley waited on the runway, another unusual accommodation I had organized specifically for this journey. As we traveled through familiar districts toward Brookline, I experienced a strange moment, combination of nostalgia and determination solidifying within me. The Adams household estate appeared exactly as it constantly had, imposing colonial architecture, flawlessly maintained grounds, now covered with November precipitation, a wreath already suspended on the entrance in anticipation for the festive season. I instructed the operator to wait, then inhaled deeply before ascending the stairs I had climbed thousands of occasions before. Mother responded to the entrance herself, bypassing the domestic worker in her enthusiasm to see me. Her vision widened slightly as she absorbed my presentation. "Morgan darling," she stated, embracing me, with the scent of expensive fragrance and the subtle note of midday wine on her breath. "You appear different. Is that a Rolex?" "A Patek Philippe, actually," I stated, returning her embrace. "Positive to witness you, mother." She guided me inside, conversing about Thanksgiving arrangements and Megan's latest Instagram achievement. I acknowledged politely, positioning down my bag in the grand entrance with its sweeping stairway and crystal lighting fixture, home sweet home, with all its complicated recollections. "Your father is in his workplace," Mother stated. "He has been very occupied with some significant transaction, very confidential even with me." I smiled. "I will greet him before I accommodate myself." Father's workplace had always been somewhat restricted territory, a masculine refuge of leather, mahogany, and commercial publications. I knocked once and entered without waiting for a response, a small act of resistance. He glanced up from his workspace, reading spectacles positioned on his nose, surprise flickering across his expression, before settling into his usual mild disinterest. "Morgan, you succeeded." He stood for a brief awkward embrace, then gestured vaguely toward the chair across from his workspace. "The journey from California was positive." "Very smooth," I stated, deliberately not accepting the offered seat. "I traveled private, conserves duration." A momentary confusion crossed his features. "Private, that must have been expensive." I gestured. "Commerce is positive." Before he could inquire further, his telephone rang. And with a perfunctory, "Pardon me, this is significant." He directed a way to respond to it. I utilized the opportunity to glance at the documents on his workspace. There it was, the Everest Holdings acquisition proposal with my corporation logo prominently displayed. My pulse accelerated, though I maintained my composure as he finished his communication. "Sorry about that," he stated hastily, collecting the documents into a folder. "Significant things occurring at the corporation. You wouldn't comprehend." The familiar rejection rolled off me like liquid now. "Naturally, Father. I will permit you returning to it." I departed his workplace and headed upstairs to my previous bedroom, which Mother had maintained as a shrine to my teenage self. My trophies, computer technology recognitions and MIT pennant still adorned the walls, dusty testaments to accomplishments that had never impressed the one individual whose approval I had sought most. After refreshing up, I headed downstairs and discovered Garrett in the living area, already consuming scotch at 3 in the afternoon. He possessed our father's tall frame and confident posture, though years of privileged accommodation had softened him around the center. Well, the prodigal sibling returns," he stated, elevating his glass in mock toast. "Still performing with computers in California." "Something like that," I replied with a constrained smile. "How is your little emerging business performing? Generating any revenue yet?" His condescension was so familiar, it almost felt like home. Before I could respond, Megan burst into the area, telephone held at the perfect angle to capture her entrance for her Instagram admirers. "Morgan is here, everyone." "Household reunion occasion," she announced to her telephone before air kissing my cheeks. "You appear expensive, sister. Did you finally discover yourself a wealthy romantic partner?" "No, just laboring intensely," I stated, stepping out of her recording frame. Garrett brought his new romantic partner, Megan's stage whispered, still recording. "Amber. She's 24 and performs yoga. Like professionally." On cue, a willowy blonde entered the area, wearing designer denim and a cashmere garment that highlighted her perfect figure. Garrett immediately pulled her to his side with proprietary pride. "Amber? This is my sibling, Morgan. She resides in San Francisco and performs technology activities." His vague wave dismissed a decade of my professional accomplishments. "Oh, my goodness, I adore San Francisco." Amber gushed. The shopping is remarkable. Our awkward small conversation was interrupted by the sound of father's elevated voice from his workplace. Though the words were muffled, his excited tone carried through the residence. Yes, absolutely. Tomorrow after Thanksgiving, 50 million is the final proposal. Everest Holdings has been very insistent on the terms. I excused myself to the kitchen, requiring a moment independently. The household personnel had always been kinder to me than my personal household. Maria, our domestic worker of 20 years, was arranging vegetables for tomorrow's celebration. Miss Morgan, she smiled warmly. It is positive to witness you. You appear well. California agrees with you. Thanks, Maria. Require any assistance? She declined with a head gesture. Your mother desires everything perfect for tomorrow. Significant day, she states. Your father has information. I acknowledged, wondering if the entire household personnel knew about the transaction before his personal offspring did. So I gathered. The pre-dinner beverages hour was excruciating. Mother fluttered about with forced cheerfulness. Father examined his telephone every 3 minutes. Garrett bragged about his new watercraft to anyone who would listen, and Megan documented everything for her admirers. I consumed my wine slowly, observing the household dynamics with new vision. No longer the hurt daughter seeking validation, though a successful businesswoman about to alter the game entirely. Dinner is ready, Mother finally announced, guiding us toward the formal dining area where the household had assembled for festive meals for 3 generations. I inhaled deeply and followed them, knowing that by the occasion dessert was served, nothing would ever be the same. The Addams household Thanksgiving dinner had always been a formal affair. The massive mahogany dining surface gleamed under the light of the crystal lighting fixture, arranged with the Wedgwood china that only emerged for special occasions. Sterling silver candelabras held ivory-tapered candles, casting a warm glow over the autumnal centerpiece of pumpkins, gourds, and fall foliage that Mother had undoubtedly commissioned from the most expensive florist in Boston. I noted with mild amusement that I had been seated at the far end of the surface, as far from Father at the head as physically possible, typical. Garrett sat at Father's right hand with Amber beside him, while Megan occupied the spot to Father's left. Mother took her traditional place at the opposite end with me. He had her symbolically separated from the inner circle of household commerce by the length of polished wood between us. Maria and the kitchen personnel brought out course after course, butternut squash soup garnished with creme fraiche, harvest salad with candied walnuts and cranberries, and finally the turkey. A 25-pound bird roasted to golden perfection, accompanied by all the traditional sides. Father carved with ceremonial precision, while Megan filmed for her social media, providing running commentary. And here is Daddy carving the turkey just like his father before him, continuing the Addams household tradition of excellence in everything they perform. I caught Mother wincing slightly at Megan's performance before consuming a large portion of her wine. By my count it was her 4th glass since I had arrived. Once our plates were filled, Father elevated his glass for the traditional Addams household gratitude ritual, another performance where we each shared what we were thankful for this year. It had once been meaningful before it devolved into a competitive status report. Garrett went first, as the eldest always did. I am thankful for another record-breaking quarter at Addams Software, he began, though I knew from my research that the corporation had actually lost marketplace portion for the 3rd consecutive quarter. And for my new 42-foot yacht, the Addams Legacy. He squeezed Amber's hand, and for new beginnings with this remarkable woman. Amber giggled and kissed his cheek, while Megan made exaggerated gagging motions when Garrett was not looking. Megan went next, telephone still in possession. I am so thankful to have reached 1 million admirers this year. My collaboration with Luxury Life Cosmetics has been remarkable, and I am grateful to be in Addams and represent our household brand to the world. she beamed at father, who acknowledged approvingly, though he had often complained privately about her frivolous profession. When my turn arrived, I positioned down my fork and spoke clearly. I am thankful for the lessons existence has taught me. That sometimes rejection leads to the correct path, that persistence matters more than privilege, and that achievement is the best instructor. I elevated my glass. To finding your personal way. Father frowned slightly, perhaps detecting something in my tone, though quickly moved on to his personal gratitude speech, which predictably centered on the commercial legacy he had constructed. Mother offered generic thanks for household and health, her words slightly slurred. Throughout the meal, father seemed distracted, examining his telephone under the surface, and occasionally murmuring to mother, whose expression grew increasingly strained. Garrett dominated the conversation with stories about customers he had supposedly impressed, while Megan interrupted regularly to share comments from her admirers watching her Thanksgiving Instagram story. As Maria brought in the pumpkin and pecan pies, father suddenly tapped his knife against his crystal water glass, the sharp ping cutting through the dinner conversation. I have an announcement to deliver, he stated, standing at the head of the surface with the authority of someone accustomed to commanding areas, one that affects everyone here. The surface fell silent, even Megan lowered her telephone. As you recognize, I have dedicated my existence to constructing Atom Software into a leader in our sector, though all positive things evolve and the occasion has arrived for alteration. He paused dramatically. I have determined to sell the corporation. Garrett choked on his wine. Though father, you cannot be serious. Father elevated his hand for silence. I have been in negotiations for months with a very interested purchaser. The transaction will be completed tomorrow. Megan gasped theatrically. Though Daddy, what about the Atom's legacy? My brand is constructed around being an Atom Software successor. That brings me to the second part of my announcement. Father continued, his expression unreadable. The proceeds from the transaction will not be directed to you offspring as inheritance. Now, both Garrett and Megan erupted in protest. That is our birthright. Garrett slammed his fist on the surface, rattling the china. What do you mean? Megan wailed, now transmitting the household drama to her admirers. Where is the revenue directed? Father waited for their outbursts to subside. Your mother and I will be utilizing part of it for our retirement. The remainder will direct toward establishing the Atoms Foundation, a charitable organization to support technology education. This is nonsense. Garrett stood. His expression flushed with anger. I have given 10 years to this corporation. You promised it would be mine someday. You promised all of us. Megan joined in, tears streaming down her expression, though she kept her telephone carefully angled to capture her most flattering crying angle. Throughout the chaos, I remained perfectly still, consuming small, deliberate portions of pecan pie. Mother noticed my calm and gave me a quizzical expression. Morgan, she stated quietly. You don't seem surprised. The surface gradually quieted, as everyone turned toward me, suddenly remembering my presence. Actually, I stated, positioning down my dessert fork with precision, I have just one question. I gazed directly at my father. Who is the purchaser? Father's chest puffed with pride, pleased to possess significant information that we didn't. A very successful technology investment firm called Everest Holdings. They are paying $50 million, which is more than generous given our recent marketplace challenges. I consumed a portion of liquid, utilizing the moment to steady myself for what arrived next. The area felt charged with a strange electricity, the moment suspended between the past and future. Father, I stated finally, my voice calm and clear. I am Everest Holdings. The area went completely silent. I could hear the antique grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, marking the seconds of frozen disbelief. For several heartbeats nobody moved. The silence was absolute, as though the air itself had solidified around us. I watched the emotions perform across my father's expression, in rapid succession: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally the first flickers of anger. Garrett was the first to react, knocking over his wine glass as he stood abruptly. The red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like blood, a vivid punctuation to the moment. "What the hell are you conversing about?" he demanded, looking between father and me with growing panic. Megan incredibly was still transmitting, her hands shaking as she captured what was quickly becoming the most dramatic content her admirers had ever witnessed. "Oh my goodness," she whispered to her telephone. "Did my sibling just state she owns Everest Holdings, the corporation purchasing our household commerce?" Mother reached for her wine glass, discovered it empty, and promptly grabbed the bottle instead. I stood slowly, experiencing a strange sense of calm after carrying the secret for so long. "Emmy Stone," I stated. "Morgan Elizabeth Stone. That is the designation I have been utilizing professionally for the past decade, while constructing Everest Holdings into a $200 million corporation." Father discovered his voice at last. "This is preposterous," he sputtered. "Everest Holdings is operated by Emmy Stone, a respected technology investor, not by my daughter who has been performing at emerging businesses in California." I reached into my purse and removed my business card case, made of sleek brushed platinum with the Everest Holdings logo engraved on its surface. I slid a card across the surface toward him. "Actually, Father, I am Emmy Stone. I founded Everest Holdings 10 years ago after you dismissed my commercial proposal and embarrassed me in front of your board." Father snatched up the card, staring at it as though it might transform in his hands. "This is some kind of jest," he stated, though his voice had lost its certainty. "Everest Holdings now owns controlling interests in Nexus Technologies, DataStream Solutions, and TechCore Industries." I continued, naming Atom Software's 3 largest suppliers. "We also recently acquired majority stakes in your 2 biggest customers, McKinsey Manufacturing and Westfield Distribution. The Atom Software acquisition is the final piece in a strategic plan I have been implementing for the past 18 months. You have been surveilling our commerce," Garrett accused, his expression mottled with rage. "That is corporate espionage." "No, Garrett. It is called marketplace research. Everything I learned about Atom Software came from publicly available financial documents, sector examination, and completely legal channels." I directed back to Father. "The truth is, Atom Software has been failing for years. Your technology is antiquated, your management practices are from the previous century, and you have lost 22% marketplace portion in the past 3 years." "How dare you," Father began, though I cut him off. "I attempted to assist you first, you recognize. 6 months previously, Everest Holdings transmitted an anonymous partnership proposal that would have permitted the Atoms designation to remain on the corporation while providing the capital and technology upgrades you desperately required. You rejected it without even reading past the first page." Father's vision widened in recognition. "The Phoenix proposal. That was you." I acknowledged. "I desired to give you a chance to accept assistance without recognizing it came from me. Your pride wouldn't permit it. So this whole occasion you have been plotting against your personal household," Garrett shouted, "planning to steal our corporation." "Not steal, Garrett, purchase legally. For $50 million, which is honestly more than its current marketplace value." I kept my voice level despite the emotional storm brewing inside me. "And let us be clear, this corporation stopped being our household commerce the day Father made it evident that only one offspring would ever possess a meaningful role in it. Despite that offspring's complete lack of qualifications or interest in technology." Megan finally lowered her telephone, the reality of the situation apparently sinking in. "So you are directed to be our supervisor now?" she inquired in a small voice. "Technically, yes," I confirmed. though the current management structure will be completely reorganized. Father stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. This transaction is terminated, he declared. I will not sell my corporation to my personal daughter as some kind of revenge plot. I declined with a head gesture slowly. The agreements are authorized, Father. The board has approved the transaction. The press release goes out tomorrow at 9 in the morning Eastern Duration. Legally, Everest Holdings already owns Atom Software. I will contest this, he threatened. Though the uncertainty in his vision told me he already recognized I had outmaneuvered him. My attorneys will. Your attorneys have already vetted the transaction extensively, I interrupted gently. They advised you it was the best proposal you would obtain in the current marketplace. What exactly will you inform them now? That you are upset because the brilliant CEO you have been negotiating with turns out to be your daughter. Mother spoke for the first occasion since my revelation. Her words slightly slurred, though her gaze surprisingly clear. All these years, Morgan, all these years you were constructing this while we thought. While you thought I was failing, I finished for her. Yes, exactly. Father slammed his hand on the surface. You possess a choice to determine right now, Morgan. You can be my daughter, or you can be the individual who took my corporation. You cannot be both. The ultimatum hung in the air between us, so predictable it almost made me sad. 10 years previously it would have devastated me. Now it merely confirmed what I had always recognized. That is where you are incorrect, Father, I stated quietly. I am both. I always have been. You just refused to witness it. Megan had started crying in earnest. Now mascara tracking down her perfectly contoured cheeks. What occurs to us, to our trust finances, our positions? That depends, I responded honestly. On whether you desire to actually labor for the corporation, or just claim its benefits. Garrett pointed an accusing finger at me. You planned this for Thanksgiving. Deliberately. Didn't you, to embarrass us in front of the whole household? I planned it for Thanksgiving because I recognized everyone would be here. I corrected him. And because 10 years previously at Thanksgiving dinner, Father announced that he was promoting you to vice presidential role, despite your complete lack of qualifications, while informing me my degree from MIT and 3 years of coding experience was not sufficient to warrant even an entry-level management position. Father's expression flushed at the reminder. That was different. Garrett is my son, my firstborn. And there it is, I stated softly. The genuine reason I was never given a chance. Not my concepts, not my education, not my labor ethic, just my gender. The painful truth silenced the area again. Even Garrett possessed the grace to appear uncomfortable. This conversation is terminated, Father finally declared. Everyone out. I require to contact my attorneys. He stormed from the dining area, the sound of his workplace entrances slamming, echoing through the residence moments later. Mother rose unsteady to her feet. I should proceed and examine on him, she murmured, though she paused beside my chair. Are you genuinely worth 200 million? I acknowledged. And all those occasions you couldn't arrive home for Christmas because you stated you couldn't afford the plane ticket. I was operating a corporation, Mother, and I required you all to keep underestimating me. She touched my shoulder briefly, an unreadable expression on her expression, then followed after Father. As the dining area emptied, I remained seated, gazing at the abandoned Thanksgiving celebration around me. The turkey had grown cold, the candles burned low, and the household I had once desperately desired to impress had scattered in shock and anger. It should have experienced like victory. Instead, a hollow ache spread through my chest as I realized that while I had finally earned their attention, I was further than ever from earning their comprehension. I retreated to my childhood bedroom as the residents descended into chaos below. Through the floor I could hear father shouting on the telephone, presumably to his attorneys, while mother's placating tones rose and fell in counterpoint. Occasionally, Garrett's angry voice would join the cacophony, followed by Megan's dramatic wailing. My previous area remained frozen in duration, a museum to the individual I had been, the twin bed with its navy blue comforter, the workspace where I had dedicated countless hours coding and dreaming, the bookshelves, lined with computer technology textbooks, and the few fantasy novels I had permitted myself as rare accommodations. Debate trophies and scholarly medals gathered dust on the shelves, accomplishments that had never impressed the one individual whose approval I had sought most. I ran my fingers along the spines of my previous journals, pulling one out at random. Inside were detailed commercial strategies, algorithm sketches, and notes for the very cloud integration system that had eventually become Everest's flagship product. The irony was not lost on me that everything I had constructed had begun right here in the area where I had experienced most invisible. A sharp knock on the entrance interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to discover Garrett, his tie loosened and expression flushed with either anger or alcohol, possibly both. "We require conversing," he stated, pushing past me into the area without waiting for an invitation. I closed the entrance and leaned against it, arms crossed. "About what, Garrett? How I ruined your Thanksgiving or how you plan to inherit a corporation you assisted operating into the ground?" "You believe you are so clever," he hissed, pacing the small space like a caged animal. Little Morgan with her computers and her secret identity. "Did you enjoy lying to our expressions all these years?" "As much as you enjoyed accepting credit for my concepts," I replied evenly. "Remember when I suggested Atom's software should move to cloud-integrated solutions 6 years previously during Christmas dinner?" Father dismissed it as trendy technology jargon. "Though somehow, 3 months later, you presented the exact same concept as your personal strategic vision." Garrett stopped pacing, his expression darkening. "I was the one who stayed. I was the one who put in the duration at the corporation while you ran off to California to prove some point." "You put in duration, yes. Though what did you actually contribute, Garrett? Besides expenses on the corporation credit card for customer dinners at strip establishments and a corner workplace, you utilized primarily for naps between hangovers." His expression contorted with fury. "You don't recognize what you are conversing about." I brought in the Westfield account. Westfield came to Atom's software because I personally reached out to their CTO as M.E. Stone and recommended your offerings as part of my long-term acquisition strategy. I informed him. "And I recognize exactly what I am conversing about because I have been auditing the corporation remotely for the previous year as part of my due diligence. Obtaining the financial records you thought were only accessible on the local server." The color drained from his expression. "What are you stating?" "I recognize about the $300,000 you embezzled through fake vendor accounts, Garrett. I recognize about the phantom consulting fees that went directly to your personal offshore account. I recognize everything." He took a threatening step toward me. "You cannot prove any of that. I possess transaction records, account numbers, and IP logs showing the falsified entries came from your workplace computer on days when only you were present in the structure." I held his gaze steadily. "I am not planning to pursue criminal charges, Garrett. That would hurt the corporation during the transition, though don't test me." "You unpleasant person," he whispered, hands clenching into fists at his sides. "You would destroy your personal brother. I would hold accountable a thief who happens to be related to me." I corrected him. "There is a difference." We stood in tense silence until he finally directed away. "This is not terminated," he warned, yanking open the entrance. "Actually it is," I stated to his retreating back. "You just don't realize it yet." I had barely closed the entrance when another knock arrived. This occasion it was Megan. Her makeup freshly touched up despite the tear track still visible on her cheeks. "So you are like a secret millionaire," she stated, without preamble, entering my area and immediately sitting on my bed. That is actually kind of impressive. I couldn't assist but laugh at her rapid pivot. Is that what you were going with 5 minutes previously? You were crying about losing your successor status. She gestured, examining her manicure. I am adaptable. It is essential for content creator longevity. She gazed up with sudden calculation in her vision. Just consider the content we could create together. My sibling, the technology mogul, my admirers would consume that up. Is that why you are here, Megan? To propose a commercial collaboration. More like a mutual arrangement, she stated, smoothing her garment. You require a media presence for your corporation that humanizes you. And I require an authentic connection to genuine commercial achievement instead of just appearing attractive with products. The nakedly transactional nature of her proposal was so typically Megan that I almost admired it. And what about actually laboring for the corporation, learning the commerce, contributing something beyond your Instagram aesthetic? She wrinkled her nose. Goodness no. Coding is boring and commercial assemblies make me desire to expire. Though I could be like the brand representative, the expression of the corporation for the lifestyle marketplace. The expression of an enterprise programming integration system for the lifestyle marketplace. I repeated slowly. Do you hear yourself? Megan stood, straightening her shoulders. Fine, mock me like everyone else in this household. Though my social media skills are actually valuable in today's marketplace, whether you respect them or not. I have constructed my personal brand from nothing, just like you did. The parallel had never occurred to me before, and I discovered myself momentarily speechless. There was a strange kind of truth to it, though our methods and values diverged dramatically. I will consider it, I stated finally, though not tonight. She acknowledged, apparently satisfied with even this small concession. Just so you recognize, I have already posted about a major household commerce shakeup without specifics. My engagement is through the roof. After she departed, I sat at my previous workspace, powering up my portable computer, to examine the final details for tomorrow's announcement. A gentle knock interrupted me again. Come in, I called, expecting perhaps Maria with tea, or one of the household personnel. Instead, Mother entered, appearing surprisingly sober given the amount of wine she had consumed at dinner. She had changed from her dinner garment into a cashmere sweater and slacks, her armor of Boston society spouse temporarily set aside. Your father has locked himself in his workplace with a bottle of scotch and the corporation regulations, she stated, settling into the window seat where she used to sit and read me stories as a child. He is convinced there must be some loophole to stop the transaction. There isn't, I stated simply. His attorneys already confirmed it. She acknowledged, gazing around the area thoughtfully. You recognize I kept everything exactly as you departed it. I always thought you would return once you obtained this rebellion out of your system. It was never a rebellion, Mother. It was a profession, an existence. 200 million, she mused, declining her head slightly. My little girl constructed a corporation worth 200 million in secret while we all thought you were struggling. I directed to confront her fully. You could have inquired, Mother. Any of you could have shown genuine interest in what I was performing. Though none of you ever genuinely desired to recognize. Tears welled in her vision. I recognized, Morgan. Not the details, not the scale of your achievement, though I recognized you were special. I witnessed it when you were little, the manner your mind worked differently, how you comprehended things the remainder of us couldn't grasp. She wiped at her cheeks. I just didn't recognize how to assist you in a household like ours, with a man like your father. You could have stood up for me, I stated, the previous hurt, rising unexpectedly in my throat. All those occasions he dismissed me, embarrassed me. You just sat there. I was incorrect, she admitted quietly. I informed myself I was keeping the peace, being a supportive spouse. though I failed as a mother when you required an advocate." The simple acknowledgement pierced something long frozen inside me. I had arrived prepared for anger, for accusations, even for legal threats. I had not prepared for genuine remorse. "What occurs now?" Mother inquired, after a long silence. "Tomorrow morning the acquisition becomes public. Adams Software will become a subsidiary of Everest Holdings. The corporation designation will remain for now, though operations will be completely restructured." I hesitated, then added, "Father and Garrett will be offered advisory positions with no genuine authority if they desire them, mostly for appearances during the transition." "And you? Will you relocate back to Boston?" I declined with a head gesture. "I will remain in San Francisco. I will install a new management group here." She acknowledged, seeming to comprehend all I wasn't stating. That I had outgrown this residence, this household dynamic, this version of myself. "Your father may never forgive you for this," she warned softly. "I recognize," I acknowledged. "Though this isn't about forgiveness, Mother. It is about finally being witnessed." After she departed, I labored until dawn preparing for the morning's confrontation, ignoring the messages from Isabella inquiring for updates. As the first gray light of morning filtered through my curtains, I changed into one of my Armani suits, styled my hair into a sleek chignon, and put on the subtle makeup that Emmy Stone was recognized for in her rare public presentations. The morning would bring either a new beginning for the Adams household or its final fracturing. Either manner, I was ready. The kitchen was eerily quiet when I descended at 7 in the morning. Maria silently handed me a cup of coffee, her vision communicating a mixture of concern and respect. The formal dining area had been cleared of last night's Thanksgiving catastrophe. No evidence remaining of the household explosion, except the lingering tension in the air. I examined my telephone. 3 missed communications from my executive group, eager for updates on the acquisition announcement scheduled for 9 in the morning. A message from Isabella: "Did you drop the revelation? Are they still breathing?" I had just finished responding when Father appeared in the doorway of the kitchen. He appeared older than he had yesterday. The lines around his vision deeper, his normally perfect posture slightly stooped. He had clearly not slept. "My workplace, now." His tone left no room for discussion. I followed him down the hallway to the area that had always been the center of Adam's household power. The wood-paneled walls were covered with framed accolades, commercial publication covers featuring Father, sector recognitions, photographs with politicians and celebrities. Conspicuously absent was any recognition of my accomplishments. Though my MIT graduation photograph sat on a side surface, half hidden behind more prominent household pictures. Father took his seat behind the massive workspace, a position he had utilized to intimidate commercial rivals for decades. I chose not to sit in the visitor's chair, as expected. Instead, perching on the edge of the workspace itself, a subtle repositioning of our power dynamic that didn't go unnoticed. "My attorneys confirm what you stated last night," he began, without preamble. "The transaction is legally binding." The board vote was unanimous. "Naturally it was," I replied. "Adams Software has been losing marketplace portion for 3 years. Your technology is antiquated, your management structure is bloated, and your development pipeline is empty." The board recognized a positive proposal when they witnessed it. $50 million, he stated, declining his head. The corporation was valued at $70 million, just 2 years previously. The corporation was overvalued 2 years previously, I corrected. And I offered more than any other potential purchaser would have. Most would have stripped the assets and dissolved the Adams designation entirely. He gazed up sharply. "And is that your strategy, to erase your personal household legacy?" "No, despite everything I respect what grandfather constructed and what you expanded. The Adams designation stays, though the corporation structure will alter significantly." For the first occasion, uncertainty crossed his features. What exactly are your strategies? I had waited 10 years for him to inquire my opinion on commercial subjects. The irony wasn't lost on me. Adams Software will become the enterprise division of Everest Holdings, focusing on updating your legacy products and integrating them with our cloud systems. We will retain approximately 60% of the current personnel with significant alterations to upper management. And me, he inquired, the question clearly costing him. You will be offered a position as chairman emeritus. No operational authority, though you will maintain an workplace and can advise on customer relationships during the transition. His jaw tightened. A figurehead role. A respected advisory position, I countered. With full benefits and a generous compensation package. He stood abruptly, walking to the window that overlooked the immaculately maintained garden. For a long moment he stated nothing, his back to me, as he stared out at the property that generations of Adams' achievement had constructed. How did you accomplish it? He finally inquired, his voice quieter now. Not something that valuable when you possessed nothing. No connections, no emerging capital. I possessed my education, I reminded him. The one thing you couldn't take from me. And I possessed tremendous motivation to prove you incorrect. He directed back to confront me. I expected you to fail. I recognize. Everyone does, you recognize, fail I mean. 1% of emerging businesses never make it past the first 3 years. I thought. He hesitated, seeming to struggle with the words. I thought I was protecting you from inevitable disappointment. By ensuring I never obtained the chance to attempt, I elevated an eyebrow. That isn't protection, Father. That is command. He flinched slightly at the accusation. Perhaps. I constructed this corporation from what my father started. At 10 times over. I thought I recognized best. Though you didn't, I stated simply. You were incorrect about me. Incorrect about the direction of the sector. Incorrect about Garrett being the natural successor. At the mention of my brother, Father's expression darkened. Garrett may possess his flaws, though he has been loyal to this corporation. Garrett has been embezzling from the corporation for at least 3 years. I informed him bluntly. I possess all the documentation. That is part of why I moved now, before he could execute more damage. Father sank back into his chair. The shock of this new revelation, apparently too much to process while standing. That cannot be true. $300,000 siphoned through fake vendor accounts. The evidence is irrefutable. Why would he require to steal? He generates a generous salary, possesses a trust finance. Gambling debts, I stated. Sports betting mostly, from what I can determine. Father buried his expression in his hands briefly, before gazing back up, suddenly appearing every one of his 68 years. So both my son and my corporation were failing, and I was too blind to witness either. The naked vulnerability in his admission caught me off guard. I had expected more anger, more accusations, not this broken acceptance. Not blind, I stated, softening my tone slightly. Just gazing in the incorrect direction. A long silence stretched between us, filled with decades of misunderstanding and missed opportunities. When he finally spoke again, his voice had altered, the arrogance replaced with something approaching genuine curiosity. How did you accomplish it? He inquired. Genuinely? No connections, no investors who recognized the Adams designation. How did you construct something so successful? I considered deflecting, though there was something in his question that seemed sincere for the first occasion in our relationship. I commenced small, I explained. Freelance development labor to construct capital. When I created a proprietary integration system that solved a problem every enterprise corporation possesses, connecting legacy frameworks with modern cloud architecture. It was actually based on the proposal you dismissed when I was 22. A flicker of recognition crossed his expression. The one with the middleware solution. I acknowledged, surprised he remembered even that much. Yes. I refined it, made it more adaptable. Utilized it to attract our first major customers. Reinvested every gain. Resided in a studio residence consuming inexpensive noodles for 3 years to keep overhead low. Constructed a group of brilliant individuals who believed in the vision. Without the Adams designation to open entrances, he mused. Because of that, in some manners, I corrected. Being underestimated is a powerful position if you recognize how to utilize it. No one witnessed me approaching. He almost smiled at that. Clearly not. Another silence fell, though different now. Less hostile. I examined my timepiece. The press release goes out in 45 minutes. We should discuss next steps. What about Garrett and Megan? He inquired. Garrett will be offered a choice. Resign quietly with a reasonable severance or confront potential legal consequences for the embezzlement. Megan. I paused, considering. Megan actually made a compelling case last night for serving as a brand representative. Her social media skills are legitimately valuable in the correct context. Father appeared genuinely surprised. You would keep them involved. After everything. This was never about destroying the household, Father. It was about claiming my place in it on my terms. He acknowledged slowly, his gaze dropping to the documents on his workspace, then rising again to meet mine with unexpected directness. You outmaneuvered me completely, he stated. And I was startled to detect a note of something almost like pride in his voice. Your grandfather would have been impressed. Coming from him, it was as close to approval as I had ever received. I experienced a complicated emotion rising in my chest. Not quite vindication, not quite forgiveness, though something hovering in the space between. I learned from observing you, I acknowledged. Even when you didn't believe I was paying attention. He extended his hand across the workspace. So, Chairman Emeritus. I took his hand, sealing the first professional agreement we had ever made as equals. Welcome to Everest Holdings, Father. 6 months after that fateful Thanksgiving, I stood in the newly renovated headquarters of Adams Everest Technologies. The former Adams software structure had been transformed with open workspaces, state-of-the-art technology, and a collaborative environment that respected the corporation's history while embracing its future. My role as CEO of Everest Holdings meant I split my duration between San Francisco and Boston, overseeing the integration of the two corporations and the evolution of our expanded product offering. The transition had not been easy, though it had been more successful than even my optimistic projections had anticipated. Father had surprised everyone by embracing his chairman emeritus role with unexpected grace. Once the initial shock and anger had subsided, he discovered satisfaction in mentoring younger group participants and maintaining relationships with long-standing customers. We had established a weekly assembly where he could offer insights on corporation history and sector relationships, and I discovered myself actually looking forward to these sessions. For the first occasion, we were constructing a relationship based on mutual respect rather than expectations and disappointments. Garrett's situation had been more complicated. After confronting the evidence of his embezzlement, he had initially threatened legal action against both me and the corporation. Eventually, cooler heads prevailed when he realized his options were limited. He accepted a conditional proposal, repayment of the stolen finances, resignation from his executive position, and enrollment in an MBA program if he desired any future role in the commerce. To my surprise, he chose education over exile and was now halfway through his first semester, calling occasionally with genuine questions about commercial strategy. Megan had flourished in her new role as brand representative for our consumer products division, a small though growing part of the commerce that benefited from her social media expertise. Her admirers had been captivated by the dramatic household commerce saga, which she carefully presented as a story of female empowerment and household reconciliation rather than the more complex reality. Her technology successor Rebrand had actually opened entrances to younger marketplaces we had previously struggled to reach. Mother had perhaps altered the most. Freed from her role as peacekeeper in a dysfunctional household commerce, she had reduced her drinking, started volunteering with women's education initiatives, and even joined the board of a technology incubator for female founders. "I desire to assist other girls like you," she informed me, "so their mothers don't make the same mistakes I did." As I walked through the workplace, employees acknowledged respectfully or smiled in greeting. I was no longer Emmy Stone, the mysterious founder, nor Morgan Adams, the forgotten middle offspring. I was simply Morgan, the CEO who had modernized a failing household commerce and created new opportunities for everyone involved. My assistant interrupted my thoughts. "Your father is waiting in the conference area with the quarterly reports," she informed me, "and your mother contacted to confirm dinner tonight with the potential investors." I thanked her and headed toward the assembly, pausing briefly by the newly installed corporation timeline in the main lobby. It displayed the evolution of Adams software from my grandfather's garage emerging business to our current iteration as Adams Everest Technologies. My photograph now hung alongside those of my grandfather and father, 3 generations of leadership, with my personal accomplishments listed with the same prominence as theirs. Thanksgiving was approaching again, and this year would be entirely different. We had planned a smaller, more intimate household dinner without the performative traditions that had dominated our previous assemblies. No formal gratitude ritual, no commerce posturing, just a household, still learning how to genuinely witness and hear each other. The journey from rejection to leadership had been longer and more painful than I could have imagined when I departed Boston 10 years previously. The challenges of merging household and commerce continued daily, requiring patience and perspective I was still developing. There had been moments when the weight of past hurts threatened to overwhelm the progress we had made, when previous patterns of communication emerged in tense assemblies or household dinners. The hardest part had not been the acquisition itself, though the ongoing labor of constructing relationships that could withstand both our shared history and our current professional roles. Father still occasionally slipped into his authoritarian approach before catching himself. I sometimes discovered myself unnecessarily defensive, anticipating dismissal that no longer arrived. Yet slowly, conversation by conversation, the Adams household was creating a new dynamic. Mother had hosted a dinner last month where for the first occasion in my recollection everyone spoke equally, everyone listened, and no one stormed out in anger, small victories, though meaningful ones. Perhaps the most profound moment had arrived unexpectedly during a late night at the workplace when Father and I were reviewing the first quarter results after the merger. The numbers had exceeded all projections, with customer retention at 98% and new agreements increasing revenue by 32%. "You recognize," he had stated, quietly staring at the spreadsheet, "you have already accomplished more than I did in my first decade operating this corporation." The simple acknowledgement had healed something in me that I hadn't realized was still broken. Not because I required his validation professionally anymore, though because it represented the human recognition I had sought all along. The experience had taught me that achievement itself isn't sufficient to heal household wounds. The satisfaction of proving myself had been sweet, though ultimately hollow until it led to genuine connection. I had required to learn that there is a difference between winning and resolving, between being correct and being whole. As I entered the conference area where Father waited with the quarterly reports, I reflected on how complex the journey had been from that Thanksgiving revelation to today. The lesson I carried forward was not that achievement is the best revenge, though that achievement without reconciliation leaves both sides poorer. True victory arrived not when I proved my father incorrect, though when we both discovered a manner to be correct together. For anyone observing this who recognizes the painful dynamics of household commerce, who has experienced invisible or undervalued by those who should witness you most clearly. I hope my story offers both inspiration and caution. Constructing your personal achievement is powerful, though healing household wounds requires more than professional accomplishment. It demands honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to offer second chances even when they seem undeserved. Have you experienced similar household commerce challenges? Comment below and share your story. How did you navigate the complex intersection of household and commerce? Appreciate, subscribe, and share if this resonated with you. Thank you for witnessing my journey from rejection to reconciliation, and remember that the true measure of achievement isn't what you construct independently, though what you create together.